Hey, TPT sellers, have you ever wondered where is the cheapest place to get a domain name for your TPT blog? It's not me. I have a web hosting company. I have a domain registrar. It's not me. And in this episode, I'm going to tell you some things about where to get the cheapest domain names. And I'm going to talk about some of the marketing tricks that we use in the web hosting industry to try to get your business. And I'm going to talk about some of the cool things about how to get a domain name back if someone else gets your domain name. So here we go. Let's chat about some things. Let's see. Sorry, it's been a big day. I just finished a great call on the homework club in the Zoom club, and we were chatting about Remembrance Day. Today is November 11th. Thank you to everyone who has served or continues to serve during times of conflict, war, and peace. Thank you for your service. And it was interesting because I was chatting with a seller from a different part of the world, and it's interesting to hear. I know in Canada we have Remembrance Day. I know in the States they have Veterans Day. So it's just interesting to hear about how schools honor or recognize the contributions of others. So it was neat. And then in the homework club, we were chatting about, in the SEOTpreneur homework club, we were chatting about websites and edu-circles. And it was fantastic because there's this website, you can see all the different variations of the website over time. But we started to talk about domain names and where to get them and why you want to get domain names to protect your brand and possibilities. So I thought I would continue the conversation here and just share the cheapest place to get domain names and things to watch about and things that maybe you don't know about if you're just new to the TPT blogging. So a couple things. These are some slides that are coming from a masterclass number 6, which is going to be a deep dive into how to use your TPT CSV data. And I'll show you how to do that and some very cool things you can tell. And it's just taking a while to get out the door. But here's a quick slide. And sometimes if your page views are low, what does that mean? The data can tell us a couple of things. We have some options. So if your page view is low, one of the things you might consider is looking up higher in the pipe to try to figure out why the page views are low. And maybe the problem is that teachers see your product page on TPT search or Google search, but they're not clicking on that listing. Right, so it shows up as a search impression, but they're not clicking. So in that case, you improve your title, your cover number 1, your snippet, and then hopefully that makes teachers want to click on your listing. Okay, but if that doesn't happen and you don't have page views, you've got to increase the page views a different way. And maybe the problem is you're not showing up in Google search at all or TPT search. So in that case, the solution is you work on TPT SEO or Google SEO, and there are very specific things you can do to optimize your chance of ranking higher in that keyword, right? It might be targeting specific keywords that are high volume and low competition. So that's like going for a long tail keyword, or maybe it's a keyword that's specific in your geographic region, country, part of the world. So for example, in Canada, if I want to, target Canadian buyers, I'm going to go with a .ca domain name. If you're in Italy, like Enrica, it might be .it. If it's in Australia, it might be .com.au. If you're in the European Union, it might be .eu. So there are things we can do to try to improve our SEO. But if that doesn't work, right? So you've done this, you've improved your TPT SEO, and you're still not getting page views. Well, then the solution is you've got to try to work on alternate means of lead generation. And that means manual lead generation. And we have a couple of different ways that I'm going to talk about in masterclass number 6. So subscribe if you're not a subscriber yet, so you get the notification. But you can get eyeballs from your TPT blog, from social media, paid ads, and email list. But of all of these, the only place where you actually control the platform and the domain name and your branding is your TPT blog, because you can buy a domain name. Well, I guess with an email list, you could buy a domain name and have it mapped on ConvertKit. But basically, you want to buy a domain name at one point for your business, because if you don't buy it and your business grows, someone else is going to buy it. So you definitely want to buy your domain name because there are domain squatters and things like that. So a couple of things I'm going to chat about. I'm going to chat about free tricks that we use as web hosting companies to try to get your business. So we offer free domain names, right? Or first year pricing. I'm going to talk about hands down the cheapest place to buy your domain name, and it's not from me. It's lower than what I can offer you from SEOT hosting. I'm going to talk about the value in having all your domains in one place. So I buy all my domain names, the cheapest places from Cloudflare, but if I can't buy the domain name from there, I'll buy it from another place. Great.ca is what I personally use. I'm going to talk about domain privacy and why you want to have that. And then we're going to look at Gale.com, which is a funny example of, well, who actually controls domain names and how can you get a domain name back? So let's talk about free domain names. And I remember doing this with Enrica. So free domain IT. And we looked up freedomain.it, and instantly you'll get a lot of ads because this is competitive. Web hosting companies, there's not a lot of markup in there. They've got to get money somehow. So they're going to try to get you with a free.com domain name. I think we went with, oh, maybe my answers are different from that's interesting. I get different answers. But Enrique and I found this domain name, free domain name. It says Hostinger. It was the #1 spot when we looked at it at the time. So then we typed up her domain name. I'm not going to buy educircles.it because there's no reason. I'm not marketing to an Italian market, right? And it says here, domain is available, which is exciting, $0 per year. That's awesome. I want free. Add to cart. I'm going to add it to my cart. I got it. Okay, so if you ever get offered a free domain name, it is free because it comes with web hosting. Because domain names have a cost. As a business, I have to pay for a domain name. And so I have to recover that cost somewhere. I can't give a million domain names for free because there's a cost associated with this. So I can see here on Hostinger that if I want this $0 per year, here I have to get either their premium or their business hosting, which is going to be $249 per month. And notice that's first year pricing, right? It's going to renew at regular price. So it might be $249, so 250 times 12, math, so like $18 for the year. But then it's going to renew at $13 times 12, which is a lot more. So you understand that free domain names are never free because there's a cost for the business. And sometimes they offer, okay, so I'm going to close this right now. So sometimes they offer a free domain name. You get first year pricing, but it's going to renew at a different rate. So let's look at, actually, before I go that, just so you know, with SEOT hosting, we play this game too. We offer a free domain name. So usually web hosting companies, they'll do free domain name for the first year, and then afterwards you have to pay for that domain name. And what I'm trying to do to cut into the market is I'm doing free domain names for a lifetime, as long as you're hosting with us. So free lifetime.com domain name. Is that a good idea? Maybe, maybe not. There's probably a reason why hosting companies only charge or only offer a free lead domain name for the first year. It's because a lead, it's a cost of acquisition for the lead. But for right now, that's what it is right now. You can have a free lifetime.com domain name as long as you maintain your plan with us. But let's look at how much domains cost, and where the cheapest place to get them is. So the cheapest place to get a domain name, hands down, and I use this myself, is a company called Cloudflare. And Cloudflare, if I go to cloudflare.com, if you've watched my show before, you know I use Cloudflare to manage all of my DNS stuff, all of my domain name stuff. So even if I buy my domain name from Google, from GoDaddy, from Bluehost, from wherever, even if you buy it from SEOT hosting, you can buy the domain name anywhere. Those are called domain registrars. I buy the domain name, and then I have Cloudflare be the phone book, like the Yellow Pages back in the day. So basically, a domain name is points to an IP address, and the IP address is the name of your computer somewhere in computer land. And so no one's going to remember a website called 72.86. Because numbers are hard to remember. So we just type in a domain name, and the domain name goes to this phone book. And the phone book I use is Cloudflare. And in Cloudflare, it'll say, oh, you're looking for educircles.org. That's at computer number 76.1, whatever, right? The IP address. So I use Cloudflare. You can buy your domain from everywhere, anywhere. And we use Cloudflare to point the domain to the correct spot. Okay. But Cloudflare, a couple of years ago, they got into the business of selling domain names as well. And because their main business isn't hosting or domain names, their main business is the infrastructure of the internet, like this phone book stuff. They decided that they would disrupt the marketplace and they would just sell it at cost or as cheap as possible. So when I try to buy a domain name on Cloudflare, here's my account. I go to register domains, right? And you can create a free Cloudflare account. You don't need me to create an account for you. Just create an account yourself. If I scroll down and I type up like, I don't know, if I like edgy circles sample.com, right? So I'm going to look up a domain name and it'll tell me, just like every other company, the domain name, the prices that you get. Hands down, .com is cheaper. It's $9.77 per year for US dollars. So we call it buying a domain name. We're not actually buying a domain name. You are renting a domain name. And what I mean by that is if you stop paying your domain name registration fees, then the registrar will say like, hey, you stop paying, in 30 days or whatever, 15 days, we're going to release your domain name. And then your domain name goes back into the wild. And the moment it goes back into the wild, other people will buy that domain name and sell it back to you, right? So I used to have educircles.org and educircles.com, right? And for a while, like I started this, I had this in my classroom like 10 years ago, however many years ago, and I had educircles.com. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to save some money. I'm not going to keep the .com. I'm just going to let it go. And I'm just going to keep the .org. And I let educircles.com. And then for a while, it was on one of those pages, like buy this domain name. This domain name can be yours for $2,000 or however much. And then today I went to look to see how much it costs. I went to educircles.com. And now I see that someone else has bought it and is using that domain name for whatever purposes, right? So before your business gets serious, at some point, you're going to have to decide, am I going to buy the domain names that people might type that they get confused with so that other people don't buy it and sell it back to me? So I own MikeFuchigami.ca. And I decided before, I haven't posted it to the right spot, so I have to fix that. I'm going to go with michaelfuchigami.ca. Here we go. This is the real site. So I bought a bunch of domain names, and I have to point them all to michaelfuchigami.ca, because if someone buys mikefuchigami.ca, then they can pretend to be me, or they can it's called domain squatting. They can sell it back to me, and then they can, say, hey, I have this domain name. Do you want to get it? And we see this with like social media accounts of large people. It's a thing. It happens. So before your business gets big, you might consider buying the other domain names that people might type or mistype. Now, there's a caveat to that. I do that a lot, but then all of a sudden those add up as yearly fees, and then you're spending like $50, $75 to maintain domain names for your business. Are you really going to use this? Maybe, maybe not. It's going to be set on annual renewal automatically because you don't want to lose that domain name. But it's something to think about. Every year I have to sort of look back and say, okay, I'm going to get rid of these domain names or release them to the wild because I'm not doing anything with them. But then if you release it to the wild, someone might come and buy educircles.com, and then you've lost that opportunity. So these are things to consider in your business, right? Educircles.com is no longer available for me to buy, even if I wanted to. I suppose I could make them a private offer. Okay, so the cheapest place to buy is Cloudflare. They are hands down cheaper than anyone else. And this is not first year pricing. This is every year pricing. So it's not like you get a special rate for transferring it to you. No, this is exactly what you have to pay. Every now and then they do increase the price because the costs that they pay increases. Okay, so what do I pay as a web hosting like a white label redomain kind of thing? So at SEOT Hosting, for me to buy a domain name, it costs me $12.40 per year. And then if I sell you a domain name, I have to charge you more than $12.40 in order to recover my costs, because there are always transaction fees, right? Like Stripe fees or whatever else. So I might have to sell this domain to you at $13.com. So even if I wanted to sell you a domain for $13, it's still cheaper for you to go to Cloudflare and buy your own domains, right? That's the cheapest place to go. But sometimes Cloudflare, so we saw this with the Italian domain name .it. Cloudflare doesn't offer all of the domain extensions that you want. Like, so .it, I can't purchase it from Cloudflare. So then at that point, I've got to buy it from somewhere else. Now, in Canada, for me personally, I use a company called grape.ca. They used to be called $10.ca, but then now their business is no longer $10 anymore. But basically what I would do like is I buy my domain names from here. Let's just see educircles.it. Let's see if they sell a .it domain name. They may not because Italian, Canadian company. Yeah, okay. So the .it extension is not supported. So if you're buying something from a specific part of the world, you might have to find where they sell those domain names. But these prices here, like .com, .org, I see I own the .com, the .ca, the .org. That's me there. So this is where I buy my domain names. This is, I buy them all in one place because if you have 5 different web hosting or domain registrars where you register your domains, it just becomes time consuming to be able to find where you hosted it. And depending on their platform, you might not like the way that they operate the name servers and stuff like that. So if it were me, I would buy my domain names from Cloudflare if I can, if they sell it. But if they don't sell it, then I'm looking for finding another place. I use Great, but you'll find another place. Maybe it's that place that you bought your first domain and you continue to do that because domain names are really just an annual cost, right? It's $14 per year, $15, whatever it is. Okay, let's talk about domain privacy because domain privacy, if I go to bluehost.com, domain privacy, let's look at this. What is domain privacy protection, right? Do they tell us our cost here? So typically, let's just see if I can find it here. Typically what companies do, I'm going to type EduCircles. No, I'm going to type SEOTpreneur sample, right? I don't want the chat here. So SEOTpreneur sample, it's available for $12.99 Canadian. Oh, why do you, the chat? I don't want the chat. And then it says here, domain privacy. How do I close the chat? Here we go, right here. All right. So here I'm at Bluehost and it says domain purchase for 1 year is $17.93. And then it says privacy and protection, right? Privacy and protection is here for $16.40 per year. So now they're going to get $13.99 plus 16, so $46. So $46, I don't know, $35 American to get domain privacy. And that's true. When you register a domain name, there's a public registrar called Whois. And Whois, so whois.com, all right? Sure. If I look up, oh, that's going to be a domain name. So enter domain name Whois. Let's just see, educircles.org. Whois, right? So you can look up on this public registry who owns the domain name. And because I bought this domain name or the domain names register with Cloudflare, it automatically for free redacts my information for privacy. So my name, my phone number, my email address is not listed in this public database. Now, a couple of things to be aware of. This database, there are companies that scrape the database and they have like legacy or like Whois data for like, so you can see all the owners previously. And if you unlock a domain to transfer it, sometimes your domain information becomes public. So that's something to think about. So as a domain registrar, I don't have to charge for domain privacy. But if domains are only $13 per year and you sell them, or sorry, if I buy a domain name for like at my wholesale price, so this is the price that I get. If I buy it for $12.40 and then I sell it to you for $14, I'm making $1.20 or $1.60 on profit per year. Like it's not a lot. So then domain registrars have to come up with ways to generate revenue. And one of the ways that you do it is by selling privacy. I'm going to sell you where's the privacy? Here we go. Privacy and protection, an extra $16.40. Because if you're not private and protection, if you don't do that, then your name is in this public registrar. And so maybe you don't want people to know your personal phone number or the contact information because everyone has to put their, for the management of the internet, like a contact address and a contact phone number. So then that's why we came up with these domain registrar privacy things. And the privacy thing, it prevents people from publicly accessing your information. But if people had a question about this, they can still contact cloudflare.com or through me reach that information, right? It's through a proxy, through someone else, not directly me. So hosting companies sell privacy, but if you register with Cloudflare, like I do, you get the privacy for free. So the reason why I like grape.ca so much is because with grape.ca, and this is a Canadian company, but they sell other places too. The reason I like grape.ca is because they offer free domain privacy. So if your domain registrar is not offering free domain privacy, then there are better options, right? Otherwise, you are doubling the amount of money you have to pay per year. And as you buy more domains, that starts to get a little expensive. I buy a lot of domains. It's like buying candy because it's just $12 per year. But then those add up. And at the end of the year, it's several hundred. So let's talk about domains. And like some people, like they didn't really like, you can buy a domain, but if I buy a brand name, right? So I have, for example, TPT keywords. I have that right now as a little experiment. But at any point, TPT could say, actually, we're the domain, we own this brand, and they can file to this international organization that manages domains and say, actually, we own the brand name for this. We would like to have this domain transferred to us, right? So that's a thing. What I love is there's this website, gale.com, right? So you can imagine people are typing gmail.com, but they mistype it and they type gale.com and they land here. You should 100% check this out. It's a funny story about gale.com. Are you interested in selling it? No. How did you get it? My husband registered it back in 1996. How many times is it visited? It's like 5 million hits in 2020. Why is it so popular? It's because people mistype gmail.com, right? You're infringing on my trademark. Okay, if you consult with someone well-versed in trademark, I love this, with trademark law, they will tell you that you can't have an exclusive trademark on a common word or name. My husband and I successfully defended ourselves against an attempted domain takeover in 2006. So if I click on this link, it's going to be pretty boring. It's going to be just like documentation stuff. But basically, if I thought someone else was infringing, squatting on my domain name, I could file a request that actually I'm the rightful owner of this brand, and I could request for it to happen, right? And so this happened. For the example, someone requested that they wanted to have this domain name, right? And it talked about, I think, Gale is in this case, Gale is an acronym for this company in Brazil, and they said, hey, we should actually be able to have this Gale.com. And then in the end, they decided that actually, like there's a couple of reasons why you can or cannot register this, but in the end, they just decided that actually, look, the respondent had a legitimate right and interest in it, and so they basically, Gale.com was able to say, I know that it's a common word, and we have a legitimate, like my husband got me this domain name, and that's a legitimate case, and so they've proven that, like you can file a complaint that you own this Gale trademark, but actually we've already won a case with this. So chances are you're going to lose the next one as well. But yeah, I talk about Gale.com because it's an example of like, if a domain is registered like with brand squatting, then maybe you can make a case to get it back. And so, but for the most part here, like as TPT sellers, we're not, as long as you're picking like your TPT seller brand and it's unique, and you can look into this. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice, right? Am I worried about someone trying to hijack educircles.org? Not really. But TPT keywords, could I possibly lose that domain? 100%, because TPT is a brand name and I'm generating keywords for that for people. It's a lead magnet. I'm not really too worried about that. I might give it up anyways because it was a tinkering experiment. So bottom line, cheapest place to get domain names is cloudflare.com. That's where you should buy your domain names. That's where you should buy all of your domain names. And second thing is, if you need help with your TeacherPreneur blog, I have a website, teacherpreneur.vip, and there's a bunch of stuff that maybe you knew that you had to do, or maybe you don't know that you have to do, and reach out to me and maybe I can help you with your TPT blog. Otherwise, any questions about WordPress, fire it away in the comments, and make sure you subscribe because masterclass number 6 is coming up. It's coming out hopefully tomorrow. And in masterclass number 6, I will show you a page like this, and I'll walk through how you can improve your TPT product based on your CSV data. All right, it's Mike. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.